So my grandpa has this genius idea of going ahead to give as much money as he can to either my mom or my aunt so one of them can start their own business. Well, how would we figure out which one gets the money? It's going to be a competition. Grandpa said whoever can come up with the best business plan and present it to him, he'll decide who he chooses. And guys, you won't believe what happens. So I need your opinion and comments about this situation I recently went through. This is a throwaway account, so nobody can link this back to me. It's going to be a lengthy read, but it's definitely going to be worth it. I hope you guys will understand why I did what I did. Let me give you guys a bit of context so that you're not lost and confused. I'm 21 female and have a very close relationship with my mother, Amy. She raised me all by herself. Unfortunately, my father passed away in an accident just before I was born. So I never met him, but my mother has always told me stories about him, and from what she said, he seemed like he was a decent guy. Also, just a bit more context, my mother had me when she was young. She was 18 when she fell pregnant with me, so our age gap isn't that big, and this is why we're so close. Anyways, my mother has an older sister, Ava, and they have this weird sibling rivalry. My mother explained that this rivalry has been going on since they were little kids, because my aunt always felt that my mother was my grandparents' favorite. So, because of my mom and aunt's rivalry, me and aunt's daughter, Anna, have the same type of relationship. My cousin's always competing with me, but I've never really entertained the idea because I just find it stupid. I mean, I don't have any siblings, and I doubt that I ever will, so I've always wished that me and my cousins could be close. But it never happened, and it looks like it never will happen. But at least I have my cousin, Jessica. She is 22. Anyways, on to the current day. It was a cold winter evening, and I was in my room, busy preparing for an exam. While I was busy writing down notes, my mom walked into my room with a smile on her face. I already knew that she wanted something, and it was probably going to be something I don't like or don't want to do. Anyways, she greeted me, and I greeted her back. She sat down on my bed and asked if we could just talk quickly. Okay, well, I closed my laptop and turned around to face her. She took a deep breath and told me that my grandparents had invited us for dinner. I frowned and then groaned because I knew that this meant that my grandparents had us all invited, my Aunt Ava and Anna. Those two always knew how to ruin such a lovely occasion with their bitterness. My mom then proceeded to say that she knew that I did not like being around my aunt and cousin, but she had big news that she wanted to share. So I looked curiously at her and asked, what is the big news? So guys, she went and took a deep breath and told me that she wanted to ask my grandfather if he could give her money so that she could open up her own bakery. I screamed with excitement and hugged her. It's been my mom's long-time dream to open up her own bakery. She loved baking and she was extremely good at it. Whenever her friends had events, they would always call and ask my mom to either bake the cupcakes or cookies and whatnot. I told her that Grandpa was definitely going to give her the money to open up the bakery because he also loved every bit of her cakes. She told me that she had her fingers crossed, and I told her that she already was in the bag. You see, my mom has this typical 9-to-5 job, and it pays her extremely well, but I knew that she was not happy at her job. Yes, you heard that right, it paid the bills, but it was not fulfilling her passion. And passion for her is baking. When she had finished high school, my mother was supposed to go to culinary school, overseas, but of course she fell pregnant with me. So my grandparents told her that she could no longer do that, and that she had to study something that would be able to get her a good job so that she would be able to provide for me. I'd always felt that my mother had sacrificed a lot for me, so I was extremely happy that she was finally going to chase her dream. My mom stood up and told me that was when she wanted to tell me. I told her that I was proud of her, and she smiled at me and told me that the dinner would be on Saturday, and I just nodded my head and proceeded to continue with my studying. Saturday came around pretty quick. We were at my grandparents' house, and I was in the kitchen helping Grandma with the cooking. Unlike my mom, I actually love cooking instead of baking. While we were busy setting up, my Aunt Ava and Anna walked in. They greeted us, and we greeted back, and they took their seats at the dinner table. And as usual, they did not try to help out. They never helped out with anything unless it was something that would benefit them. Dinner was served after a couple of minutes, and there was an awkward silence while we were eating. My Aunt Ava and Mom hardly ever spoke to each other, and after a while, my mother finally asked my grandpa if he could financially help her open up her bakery business. My grandpa smiled at her and asked her to tell him what she had planned. As my mother was about to tell him her business, my aunt interrupted, claiming that she also needed Grandpa's financial assistance for a business that she wanted to start. I raised my eyebrow and just rolled my eyes because this was my aunt's typical behavior, always trying to take away my mom's shine. My grandpa looked at me and asked my aunt to explain her business idea. My aunt starts telling my grandpa about bogus business ideas that didn't even make any sense, guys. However, I noticed that my grandpa was really listening to all of her nonsense. My mom was just keeping quiet and not even trying to defend herself. I took a deep breath and told my aunt that she needed to stop lying. She gave me an icy glare and she asked me what I was talking about, and I told her that she had no longer a business idea and that she was only doing this to try to spite my mom. She rolled her eyes and told me to shut up. I told her that she should shut up since she was the one talking about such utter nonsense. She looked over at my mom and told my mom that she needs to teach me some manners because clearly I did not have any. Before my mother even responded, I told my aunt that I did have manners and that she was the one who needed to get some. My aunt told me that I was getting out of line. I rolled my eyes at her and she told me that if I rolled my eyes at her one more time. She wasn't able to finish her sentence before my grandpa told us both to just be quiet. So we immediately kept quiet, but my aunt gave me an ugly look. I rolled my eyes at her again and she got super annoyed, but she didn't say anything. My grandpa looked at my mom and then my aunt and he told them that he would only be financially assisting one of them. He told them that he would able to financially assist one of them, and my mom sighed. She then proceeded to say that they both had his 70th birthday until then, which was a month away, to draft up their business plan and all of their ideas. So, he would take a look over their business plans, and whichever business plan looked the best, he would financially assist in that idea. He asked them if they understood him, and they both nodded their head, and I was about to tell my grandpa that what he was doing simply was not fair because my mother had asked him first, but my mother gave me one of those shut your mouth looks, so I kept quiet. Anyways, after dinner, me and my mom headed back home. While we were in the car, I asked her why didn't she just try to speak up for herself. She told me that sometimes it's best to keep quiet. I told her that I disagreed with her, and I told her that my aunt was only doing this to spite her. She told me that she knew that, but she just trusted that her business plan would... Wow, Grandpa! I reminded her that this was her evil sister that we're talking about, the person that was willing to do anything to make sure that my mom did not get what she wanted. Then, my mom told me that she would win and that I just needed to trust her. So I shook my head because I knew that my aunt was one person who was willing to go and just play dirty to get whatever she wanted, and right now she wanted to spite my mother. Yet my mom wasn't trying to see that, and I wish that she would have listened to me, guys. I really, really do. Update number 1. Hey guys, so it was finally the day. Finally the day of Grandpa's 70th birthday, and he was having one of those fancy dinners at his favorite restaurant, which he's been going to for years. My mom had been working extremely hard on her business proposal. She was certain that her business proposal would win and beat anything that my aunt even tried to come up with. So, I loved my mom's confidence and I was proud of her. I was glad that she was not allowing my aunt to walk all over her. She honestly did deserve to have her own bakery. I was busy talking to my cousin Jessica, who was my uncle's daughter. He was my grandparents' only son, but he always made sure to never get involved in his sister's drama. He also lived in a different state, so we hardly saw him. Anna walked up to us and greeted us with a huge smile upon her face, which I found weird because she hardly ever smiled at us or even spoke to us. We greeted back and continued our conversation. Anna then proceeded to ask me if I had a box of tissues ready. I gave her a confused facial expression and asked her what was she talking about. She told me that she would need those tissues to wipe my mom's tears because her mom's business proposal was, well, going to win. I rolled my eyes at her and asked her if she could just please go away. She told me that I was a loser, just like my mother. I looked at her and told her that if she did not walk away, I would slap her. She smirked at me and then she walked away. Jessica told me to calm down and reminded me that Anna was just trying to get a reaction out of me. So I took a deep breath and thanked Jessica for calming me down. I looked around and saw that my mom and aunt were with my grandpa. My hands started feeling sweaty because this meant that they were presenting their proposals to him. I crossed my fingers and hoped that Mom would get the funding that she needed from Grandpa. An hour passed and we were now all seated and eating our dinner. My grandpa stood up and slightly hit the glass, and, well, it got our attention, that's for sure. I thought that he was going to make a toast, but the words came out of his mouth. They completely and utterly shocked me, guys, and I mean it. He starts saying that my mom and aunt had written such an excellent proposal, but unfortunately, he could only pick one. I noticed that my aunt was looking over at Anna with a smirk on her face. My grandpa proceeded to announce that he would finally be funding my aunt's business. I was gobsmacked. I mean, my mother dropped her glass and I could see that she was trying her best to fight back the tears. He told us that the reason he had chosen my aunt's proposal was because he was so touched that my aunt would do something so touching and absolutely humbling. I raised my eyebrows because my aunt was nowhere near humble. And, well, my grandpa informed us that my aunt wanted to open a charity club for orphans and needed to help people in this town. Everyone started clapping their hands. They also started praising my aunt and telling her that her idea was so touching and that if she needs any money at all to help out the club, she should just let them know. I could not believe what I was hearing with my own 2 ears, guys. I couldn't believe it. I don't know, something just did not add up. As I was about to confront my aunt and grandpa, I noticed that my mother was no longer in her seat. I excused myself and started looking for her, but I simply could not find her anywhere. I tried calling her, but she was not answering her phone. So I was calling my mom again and again and again when my aunt walked up, with an evil grin upon her face. She asked me where was her crybaby of a little sister. I ignored her and just kept on trying to call my mom. My aunt took a sip of her champagne and told me that I was going to be a loser just like my mom. I told her that the only loser in this room was her, and I reminded her that at least my mother finished college and graduated, unlike her who was nothing more than a dropout. She gave me an icy glare and told me that the only reason she dropped out was because she fell pregnant, and that unlike my mom, my grandparents weren't willing to help out. I rolled my eyes, and I walked away from her. I decided to go to the parking lot and check for my mom there. I found her in her car, crying. Well, she had mascara running all the way down her face, and makeup. It was all smudged looking. She looked like an absolute mess, and I got her inside of the car, and I hugged her while she cried into my arms. I knew how much this meant to her for her dreams to just be crushed just like that. I could only imagine the pain that she was feeling, guys. Well, after she had finished crying, I asked her if she wanted me to drive us home, and she just nodded her head without even saying anything. So I drove us home, and I quickly sent Jessica and my grandma a text, informing them that we have gone home. My mom was absolutely devastated. She did not leave her room for the whole weekend except when she wanted something to eat. My aunt was already posting on her social media about this so-called charity club of hers. Something was fishy about this whole thing. I didn't know exactly what, but I knew that I was going to find out. Update number 2. Hey guys, a month has passed since my grandpa's 70th birthday. It took my mom a while to get over the hurt and disappointment, but she was doing so much better. I was out having lunch with Jessica one day, and who I last saw at her grandpa's 70th birthday celebration. We were just busy catching up, laughing, and Jessica asked me if I had seen my aunt's new apartment. I frowned and raised my eyebrow, and she told me that our aunt had gotten some new luxury apartment in a very expensive area. I told her that I did not know that my aunt had moved, and Jessica took my phone and showed me my aunt's social media. Well, that's right. Right there, I was looking at it. A page full of pictures and posts of the new apartment, and I tried checking my aunt's page on my phone, and I noticed that I could not admit that she blocked me. That was very, very suspicious. I looked over at Jessica's phone again and noticed a very strange post. I asked her to check Anna's page. She went to Anna's page, and we were shocked by what we found. Anna had a brand new car. I looked at Jessica, and she proceeded to tell me that our aunt had told her dad that she got a huge promotion at work, and this was why she was able to upgrade her lifestyle and also get Anna a car. Okay, well, I told Jessica that this did not make any sense. We finished up our lunch and decided to check out my aunt's workplace. Something wasn't adding up. I mean, what type of promotion could a personal assistant get that would allow them to afford an expensive luxury apartment and a fancy new car? We arrived at my aunt's workplace, and Jessica agreed that we were just going to tell her aunt that we were in the area and wanted to congratulate her on her new fancy apartment. Well, we asked the receptionist to direct us to Ava Smith's office. The receptionist raised her eyebrow and told us that our aunt no longer worked there, silly. Me and Jessica looked at each other. Jessica told the receptionist that was impossible because our aunt had just gotten a promotion. The receptionist laughed and told us that our aunt got fired 3 months ago because she's been accused of mishandling the company's funds. She's lucky she wasn't arrested. I was shocked to hear about that information. I told the receptionist that maybe she was mistaking our aunt, for somebody else. Oh, she took her head and shook it and took out a few documents, and she showed us a newspaper article that was advertising my aunt's former post, and she showed us another article that stated that my aunt was being investigated. Well, I asked Jessica, how could we miss all this? The receptionist explained that it was probably because they were a small company and that the article also did not mention my aunt's name. So I asked the receptionist if I could take the article, and she told me that I could. We left and we headed back home. I was still shocked by what we found out, and Jessica told me that this was all very, very suspicious. I nodded my head and told her that it was strange that my aunt had not opened charity club yet, and she bought a new apartment and car, but she got fired 3 months ago. Jessica went ahead to go and agree with me. I told her that I was simply going to investigate, and I knew I wasn't going to get the answers that I needed from anybody. So, a few days have passed since we discovered that my aunt was actually fired from her job, and no promotion. I had not told my mom anything about this yet because I wanted to make sure that my facts were straight. As much as the articles and the receptionist had given us were legit, I still needed more concrete files. I knocked on Anna's apartment door. She answered, and she was shocked to see that it was me. She asked me what I was doing there, and I pushed the door and entered the apartment. I told her that I would only be the one asking questions. She laughed and told me to get the hell out of here. I looked at her, and I smirked. I told her that I knew that her mother was fired and was being investigated for fraud. She froze with nothing in her eyes but fear. Well, I knew it all. I knew everything. She asked me where had I heard such nonsense, and I told her that I've gone to her workplace to congratulate her on the new apartment, and she asked me where I had seen that she had gotten a new apartment because her mother had blocked all family members. Yeah. I rolled my eyes and told her that clearly my aunt had forgotten to block Jessica. I could see the fears lighting up in Anna's eyes. Yes, she was getting nervous. I asked her about the charity club, and she told me to leave. I then proceeded to tell her that if she did not tell me the whole truth, I was going to expose her scandalous affair with her married professor, who was older than her own mom. She asked me how did I know about that? I reminded her This town is small. We go to the same college. But that she had just proven that it was true by asking how I knew about it. She starts to panic and begged me not to expose her affair with a much older married man. I told her to start speaking. She exposed everything. She told me that my aunt had indeed been fired because she was being investigated for fraud. She continued to tell me that the charity club business was all a lie and that her mother had just wanted the money because she was going broke. She continued to tell me that the charity club business was a lie, and that's it. I looked at her in nothing more than disgust, and just shook my head. Even though I've always known that my aunt was evil and self-centered, this was a new low. I told her that she was going to tell my mom exactly what she just told me. She told me that I was crazy, and I told her that if she didn't, I would expose her affair. She told me that I had no evidence, and I told her that I may not have evidence, but if I exposed it, then people would start investigating, and I told her the last thing she needed was a disciplinary hearing. She agreed to tell my mom as long as I did not expose the affair, which I agreed to. Anna admitted and confessed everything to Mom, who was absolutely shocked and disgusted by her sister's actions. She also told Anna that she was disappointed in her for keeping such information away from the family. Anna told my mother that it was very hard for her to tell her mom anything. She knew that what her mother was doing was wrong, but then her mother bribed her with a brand new car. After a while, Anna eventually left, and I told her that she was not to say anything to her mother, otherwise I would expose the secret. She told me that she would not even say a word. I told my mother that my plan of revenge could take place now. My mother looked at me and asked me what the plan was. I said, "Don't you worry." There's no way I was going to let my aunt get away with this. She was going to pay tremendously. Final update. It was my grandparents' wedding anniversary, and we were celebrating it at their home. They've been married for 50 years, and I was happy that they reached that beautiful milestone of half a century. Everyone was at the table eating when I stood up and told everyone that I have an announcement. My aunt rolled her eyes and asked what boring announcement did I have to make. I smiled at her and told her it's an announcement, actually, involving her. She raised one of her eyebrows and gave me a confused facial expression, which indicated that she had absolutely no idea that I knew about her evil plan. Meaning Anna had kept her part of the deal, which made me happy. I start by saying that it was so sad that I had to hear from my aunt's workplace that she's been fired. My aunt immediately froze. My grandpa then asked me what I was talking about because my aunt had recently been promoted. I shook my head and took out the newspaper article where her post was being advertised, and it showed. I told them that it looked like my aunt must have been too embarrassed to tell us what was really going on. My grandfather looked right over at my aunt and asked her, why did she not tell me about this? My aunt starts to stutter. I continued to say that my aunt was actually fired because she was being investigated for fraud. Well, my grandparents looked at my aunt and asked if this was true. My aunt then told them that it was not, and I proceeded to show them the article about the investigation. My grandpa could not believe what he was reading. He asked my aunt why had she been lying. My aunt was unable to respond to that. My grandpa then asked the million-dollar question of how was my aunt able to afford her new apartment and car that she has gotten Anna. I looked over at Anna and asked her to please tell our grandparents the truth. Anna froze. Anna glared at me. I glared at her back with this little smirk. She knew that if she did not tell the truth, I would expose her. She took a deep breath and exposed that my aunt lied about wanting to start a charity club, and that her mom had just wanted the money because what? She was broke. Everyone gasped in shock, and I could see that my aunt was fuming with anger. My grandpa proceeded to ask my aunt if this was true. My aunt stood up and starts insulting me and calling me all sorts of names, and she said that I had put Anna up to this. I told her to either use the money that Grandpa had given to her to prove that she started the charity club. She froze, kept telling me I'm a loser and I'm a lowlife. I told her that at least I wasn't a liar, at least I wasn't a thief. She kept on coming closer to me and told me that she was going to slap me. As she was about to rear back to let me have it, my mother pulled her hand away and slapped her instead. My mom told her that she would slap her again if she ever threatened my daughter. My aunt tried to slap my mom, but she dodged it. My grandpa then got in between them and told them to stop it. My aunt told Grandpa that it was my mother who started it, and Grandpa yelled at my aunt, telling her that she had no right to say a word. My aunt starts screaming that my grandparents always took my mom's side and that Mother was such a spoiled brat. She told my grandpa that she would not have taken the money in a shady manner if my grandparents had been supportive towards her. My grandpa shook his head and told my aunt to leave. My aunt glared at him, and before she left, my grandpa told her that she would have to pay the money back, otherwise he would sue her. He also told her that he wanted nothing to do with her because she was a liar and a thief, with absolutely no morals. He told her that he was disgusted by her actions, and my aunt tried begging him to forgive her, but Grandpa told her that he would call the police if she did not leave. So she left. Grandpa looked at my mom and promised to get the money for her to start her bakery. Ava. I'll be honest with you guys, the comment section was ripping Ava to shreds, straight up turning her into spaghetti. What they were saying about her was, how can you use people that are in need and say, oh, well, I'm going to build a business for these people and give them the stuff that they truly need because these are people in need. But oh no. She used that front because she knew that it would win over OP's grandfather, and he would give the money to the aunt instead of OP's mom for the bakery, which obviously she was the one that deserved it because she was serious about turning that into reality. Either way, I want to know what you guys think about the aunt and everything that followed her, because we know that karma did strike at the end of the story, and she was more than embarrassed. Anyways, let's talk about it in the comment section. My name's Mr. Reddito. I narrate stories every day. I hope to see you guys tomorrow. Hit that subscribe button, and of course remember, it's cool to be kind. Have a great day. Peace.